I know a lot of people don't watch cable TV anymore, but that system allows us, you could also web stream that information. So I'm a reader, but my husband is a YouTuber. He wants to see everything on video explained to him. So like if we're looking for recipes, he's looking on YouTube, I'm looking on Epicurious. If he wants to know how to fix something, I mean, it's just, he's going for the videos. And I think you have to reach everyone in how they are comfortable, how they like to get the information. So right now, all of our information is formatted for people like me who like to read, but it's also formatted not in plain language. It's too wordy. We need to streamline it, make it more, I can't remember the term, but there's a, maybe Nick knows, where you change all the language so it's much simpler and bullet points, plain language.
Plain language, there we go.
So
Yeah.
just going through all of our documents, and making them easier to understand and quicker for people to read,
Yep.
but then also doing the video. So we have a website, we have a cable channel, we can web stream. We need someone who's creative enough to pull all that together or has the time to do that. Because I think, and we do have a YouTube channel. Right now it's just council meetings, but we could pop up, here's how you register to vote, do a 30-second thing.
Yep.
Here's how you absentee vote. Here's how you file a claim against the city.
Yep.
And you can do all those things from your computer, well, not all of them, but a lot of them from your cell phone or your whatever electronic device. So I think we have kind of the framework. It's just need to be more.
Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. And like pieces of a puzzle, if there's a way to take just a few small pieces away from your role, then maybe you have other things that have been on the back burner, like or other things that are being asked, such as commissions, boards and commissions, and a different approach to boards and commissions that might land squarely in your role, but something that you haven't necessarily had a lot of time to focus on because of all the other things. If some of the communication is taken away, then maybe you can turn your attention to some of these more germane and tough.
All due respect, I don't want this committee to dictate what my job is. I would hope that would be between my boss and me. And you would look at what are activities that city staff need to do, because I might have skills and abilities on some things that I would like my boss to decide, or does that make sense? So I would hope your plan doesn't say the city clerk should do these activities. I think it should be the city needs to look at these activities. And then it would be up to the city manager to assign those out to staff.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
I think exactly what we did.
I only mention it because it's hard to not keep in mind some sort of constraints when you do this work.
Definitely. All right. Any other questions for someone? Afternoon, Mandy. Can you hear us? Mandy, can you hear us? Okay, we've got another ghost attendee. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Monica. If you want to hang out, you're welcome. If not,
I think I'll hang out till the debate starts at 5:30.
okay, sounds good.
In the building.
So for those that are here, I have the emerging large concepts document that Luke put together for our meeting number 3. And what I did is I went in and I highlighted, and for you, Nick, I will share my screen here in 1 second. I went in and I highlighted some additions and notes that I had from that meeting. And so we talked about capacity building in terms of what are some things we can do externally? And then at the bottom of the page are some things internally. Externally in terms of capacity building, and I think this is key, enhancing residents' capacity to interact with the city. So enhancing people's knowledge base of how to do what they need to do in relation to what the city already does. And I highlighted youth programs, partnerships, collaboration, provide a bridge to government participation for people. Also, under onboarding documentations for new residents, a flow chart, you know, if this, then this, if that, then that, right? Notices in more language, Hispanos Unidos. And, you know, basically, you know, if we're gonna get the word out, it needs to be in multiple languages where appropriate. And, you know, not everything has to be translated, but especially the important stuff does for the most frequently asked questions. And then Nick, under customer service should be the city's tagline or a goal. And am I sharing this?
No,
No, I'm not yet. Sorry, I just started going and I forgot to share. So here we are. This just has highlighted under internship opportunities, the flow chart. Comments about additional languages, and then here customer service, city's tagline or a goal. And in a few minutes here, I'll kind of go through some draft goals that I at least wrote down in terms of starting our goals and objectives. And I think customer service fits in great under a goal of enhancing residents' interaction with the city. So I think if we're able to do things that enhance a customer service experience, like providing things in plain language, like providing things in multiple languages, doing something where we incorporate user-friendly technology, so it's intuitive on how to interact, like YouTube. That's user-friendly technology. You click, it's easy to watch, right? Those things can provide a better customer service experience and thus enhance residents' interaction with the city. And then we talked about some internal improvements that could help improve the communication between the city and residents. And, you know, I think a lot of this gets back to taking a look at including additional people into our city processes and getting additional input into our city processes. There was the note of having, like, for instance, office hours or something like that, or facilitating meetings with certain city staff members in a more informal setting. So at a coffee shop, at a random beer garden, at a brewery, you know, things like that, where people could feel less intimidated, that they don't have to walk into City Hall and go into somebody's office. Like that Franklin policy that we did, you know, being able to do that, I think is especially important. And then general themes, again, Nick, you had some great comments on this, and thank you, Mandy, for putting this together. Just about transparency and communication, you know, the word transparency to me, what you really get at, and what I think we talked about, is better communication of city reasoning and decision making. So not just what the decision is, but what are the reasons behind that decision, and what are some of the considerations that inform that decision. And also customer service, make it easier for people to do the things they need to do. And that goes back to what I was saying in terms of plain language, user-friendly technology, that type of stuff. And then make accessibility a priority for our infrastructure and recreational assets. So removing barriers to participation. So going out and meeting people where they're at, providing flexibility for participation, and providing that bridge to connection with city government. Any comments on those notes or questions on those notes?
I think I do want to just add to the coffee with council,
Sure.
like just adding another bullet point, since in that first header bullet point, it does talk about each department.
Mhm.
So just adding a second one under there about, something specifically with departments.
Coffee with Carlos.
Coffee, I would love that. Coffee with Carlos. I do think, everything we're
Margaritas
talking,
with Monica.
Margarita with Monica.
that's perfect. I do think, creating all these, or I guess improving all the ways in which we communicate the stuff that you already do.
Yep.
And that already happens, and
Yep.
creating accessibility in that way is absolutely essential. But I don't think doing that alone is going to improve it's going to improve attendance.
Mhm.
Too often I'll sit with friends and I'm, encouraging them, have you signed up for a subcommittee yet? Are you participating? And they're like, why? Why would I participate? There's just me on my little soapbox, and I stand up and talk about all the reasons why we should all participate in our civic duty and public service, but I think there does need to be that additional move of those more informal
Yep.
things like you're talking about. And so
Definitely.
really highlighting those things,
Yep.
in the more informal setting, like you said, I think that's super important.
Definitely.
And making them, more approachable, making people more approachable, I think is.
Well, and it's, I think to a certain extent, a little bit more difficult too, because people used to have Rotary, used to have service clubs, and there were a lot, you could go to these service clubs and present. Now their attendance isn't so much, they're still there, they're still important, but you have a lot, you have different ways of interacting with different groups of people. And I think that, for us to be able to acknowledge that and meet people where they're at is super important. So I'll go ahead and add coffee with Carlos and margaritas with Monica to
I
that.
love
And then Diet Mountain Dew with Brian.
it.
Yeah,
But, I think about, for instance, the transportation subcommittee that we have, Brian and Ryan, city engineer and public works director, also sit on that committee. And it's been super helpful for everybody in the room to understand all the projects that have been tried in the past and, weren't funded or fell through for some other reason, because if you don't know that, then you're like, well, why isn't the city doing this? And it's like, well, yeah, we tried that 50 years ago. We had to do a referendum in order to do it, and that failed. So, it takes a lot to have to want to go back and address that when, we got so close before and it all fell apart. So just to have that information, I think will help people be like, oh, okay, I get it, that type of thing. But I do agree that, just having that information isn't necessarily going to increase participation, but I think it'll help with the relationships. So. All right.
So you had mentioned Rotary clubs or Rotary and service clubs.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, I've heard of Rotary, but I have no idea what it is or what they did. What's
they still
Rotary?
exist.
They still exist.
Yeah. You eat lunch every Wednesday, I think is what they do.
And they sing songs.
They sing
I think
songs.
so.
They have a presentation every once in a while. So it's a lot of, I think you have to be invited into Rotary
It's
by
a
a current
service
member.
club,
It's a
so
service club.
they
Yep.
do different service projects. I don't know what their current one is.
Yeah, Ride the Ridges is the big project they do right now.
Right, there it is.
So if you've heard of that cycle tour of the area, Ride the Ridges, that's sponsored by Rotary. They also give every fourth grader gets a dictionary given to them. That's a Rotary program. They also have Rotary readers that go into even younger classrooms, kindergarten. It's still an active group.
If you look at the sign on Highway 61 and Huff Street, there's a bunch of different service clubs listed on that. So there's Lions Clubs, Eagles Club, Elks Club.
All the ones that were on the sign when it blew down about 10 years ago.
And I
So
mean,
we
there's,
replaced it with a.
there's more than that.
There's more than that, yeah.
Civic Association, Steamboat Days.
Yep.
Every church has different groups. There's the WIFA, the Winona International Friendship Association.
Yep.
There's 4-H, FFA, extension office. So lots of volunteer opportunities in the community.
Do you know who's in charge of this WIFA program?
WIFA's was Joe Lepley, who was a former teacher at the middle school, but now it's Councilmember Michelle Alexander. And they are the ones that host students from both Masato and help me, Carlos.
Good job.
Vitao.
Yep.
One of the towns changed their names.
Oh, okay.
So both Japan and
Yep.
Poland. So we have students that travel there, and then we host contingents here in Winona. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities to participate and to volunteer. But there's not really one clearinghouse because everyone kind of does their own thing.
Do those organizations help the city with any of their efforts?
Maybe all do in some form or another.
Yeah.
Lions did the playground.
Mhm.
And do you see the city as reliant on any of those organizations or reliant upon them as a whole?
I don't have a lot of interaction with nonprofit organizations in my role, so I don't know.
I would say well, when you include Great River Shakespeare Festival, the Frozen River Film Festival, I would say all of those organizations contribute to the quality of life that we have. And I think they're integral. I mean, 4 days parade, I can't imagine a summer without a parade.
I think the band shell was repainted and renovated as due to one of these service organizations. I'm pretty sure that the bike path around the lake was improved with money raised by Rotary Club. So there's projects like that these service clubs just identify, and then they help raise funds to fund, like the park by the band shell is another good example, Carlos. But anyway, I think we're getting a little far afield here. Ken, can you hear us? Can we hear you? Looking for my chat window here.
And I know I'm not on your committee, but number 4 theme, make accessibility a priority. What type of accessibility are you looking at?
Just being able to participate. So it's not
It's not physical.
physical, it's not physical mobility. It's
So make accessibility a priority for our infrastructure
Yeah, this one is physical
and
infrastructure and rec.
yeah, and I think that's something too, that physical infrastructure is, well, it's important to be in, for an accessible government building, but accessibility and rec, I think Park and Rec, that's a committee will address that. So. But what I wanted to do is to take a look at this too, and start to use this emerging large concepts to kind of distill the information that much further, or consolidate it that much further, and pull out some goals from this information. And what we had talked about a couple meetings ago is, coming up with 4 to 5 goals, maybe more. And what I did do is take a crack at least starting some example goals for the Accessible Government Committee. And so I have just a draft here that I can kind of run through and talk a little bit about here. And there's a lot of blanks there, but the blanks are meant for the subcommittee to help fill in. The idea is that the subcommittee would do the goals and objectives, and then staff would come up with strategies to address those goals and objectives. So Nick, I'm going to go ahead and share this as well as with Ken and Mandy. And so this is the template that every city committee is using to go ahead and start working on draft goals and objectives. And so right at the top, we have our definitions for at least our process of goals, objectives, and strategies. And then under that, I wanted to provide an example particular to this committee. Then I also added some goals on pages on the rest of this page and the next one. But just in terms of the example goal, so the first is their centralized communication. And that's where the objective of, creating a persons that are responsible for a unified communication source in the city could be an objective. And the strategies to do that, for instance, could be an individual hired by the city, an individual, for instance, that is contracted out, or a joint partnership with maybe the county, the city county, or the city and Visit Winona, or a joint partnership among different organizations. So maybe it's not just the city funding this position, but maybe it's something that's split among a couple of other public entities. Next, another objective under improved communication from the city to residents could be something like.
Not sharing.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Sorry. All right, there we go. Whoa. A little trigger happy there. Okay, here we go. All right, so the next one could be increasing methods of communication, could be an objective to help improve communication from the city to residents. So focusing on our digital communications, something new that is new for us, our YouTube channel. We didn't have that however many years ago.
Before COVID.
Before COVID. Yeah, exactly. So what other means can we use to get the word out? And then number 3, increasing the amount of easily accessed public information. So this includes strategies such as YouTube information on Beacon, like what Sadie highlighted earlier today. And then things.
They switched it though, it's not Beacon anymore, right?
It is Beacon.
It's still Beacon?
Yep.
Okay. Something switched, sorry.
And then increasing the amount of information or at least ease of finding city data and access to Laserfish. So I know it's there right now, it just takes 5 to 6 clicks in order to get there. So how can we make it easier for people just to jump on that and find what they need? So those are just some examples of objectives that I came up with in terms of improving the communication from the city to residents. Any thoughts about that?
I think the great challenge of this committee is going to be developing is getting to the point where we can all agree on a broad set of goals. Because, depending on how you look at some of this stuff, it can easily be considered an objective of another goal or a tactic of another objective, or et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to spin our wheels here. I'm skeptical of this first goal because I think this first goal is so important that it needs to be an underlying assumption to be successful at achieving all the other goals of accessible government. Like number 2, build capacity and increase participation. That's a goal to me, right? Build capacity and increase participation of our community. That's a goal. This first one, I think, just is in the fabric of everything. So I wonder if it's a goal in and of itself. But I don't mean to dismiss it like out of the gate here. I just want to say I believe that that's our great challenge is figuring out what are the big goals and then what should go under it. So I think, and they have to be taken as a whole. So until I see what else you've got here, I
Sure.
think that, you know what I mean? So that was my first reaction. I think we should hear others' reaction to that first goal too, besides just me.
Well, then I can just chime in that the reason why I put it first and foremost, because that's what I think I've heard the most of, not just from this committee, but other committees as well, in terms of the need to centralize communication and have somebody that is dedicated to getting the word out about things.
Yeah. That seems like a great way to accomplish all of our goals.
The second thing I had, and you touched on it, Nick, was build residents' capacity to interact with the city. And then below that is enhancing residents' interaction with the city. So I see this as kind of working together. On one hand, you have the capacity of individuals to interact with the city. And then on the other hand, what can the city do to enhance its interactions with residents? So under the first one, building residents' capacity to interact with the city, I see that objectives under that, such as increasing the education on city processes and requirements. Strategies could be an info sheet on Robert's Rules of Order, information on how to do this, how to do that, how to get a curb cut permit, for instance. And a how-to on public meeting participation. So you don't have to, so it's not quite as intimidating to show up to a public hearing and share what you have to say. Another objective could be reaching out to underrepresented populations. And then also reaching out to new residents. That gets at that onboarding recommendation from the emerging concepts document, so that new residents know where to go in order to get done what they need to get done when they first move here. And then on the other hand, enhancing residents' interaction with the city. This gets to kind of what we talked about a little bit before, but an objective could be provide better information on the reasoning behind we are doing a project. So not just what project the city's worked, what projects the city works on, but why. Promoting customer service when interacting with the public, and that's gets to the things I mentioned, such as plain language, multiple languages, user-friendly technology. And another objective that could help with enhancing residents' interaction with the city is those casual interactions that we talked about, our margarita with Monica and coffee with Carlos. So. That's kind of what I have for a couple more goals. And then I have, I think, 2 more after that. So I guess I'll just stop there under these 2 goals and see if there's any comments under those. Okay. Looks like we're getting kind of towards the end here, so we're right on schedule here. These next 2 goals were related to bringing more people into the fold for the first one, and then an enhanced public understanding of city services and organization to help with that understanding, which is what we talked about in the first part of our meeting here. So wider participation in city committees and elected offices. Basically, an objective under that would be, for example, directly reaching out to underrepresented populations. Another objective could be enhancing flexibility for participation, which is what we're doing right now, allowing participation via Zoom. You know, I think that is challenging at levels such as city council and maybe planning commission for public hearings. But if the planning commission is having a discussion, you know, why can't we have a Zoom option for some planning commission members? You know, maybe that's a Chris Hood question or a city attorney's question, but
It's a statute.
or a statute. But how can we enhance the flexibility for participation in order to help more people? Because obviously, in order to participate on this subcommittee, you have to dedicate an hour of your time at 4:30 on Tuesday, you know, so how do we help people to be able to do that? Under enhancing our people's understanding of city services and organization, that's gets to what I mentioned about creating an organization-wide vision and values. And provide more information on city activities to people who are in the city. So just brainstorming some ways on how to achieve those goals. Any other goals off the top of your heads that we could add into this, or any other objectives off the top of your heads that you'd like to add into this?
I think the one thing that we talked about today already that I didn't see on here was transparency.
Okay.
And I think something that is really important for our residents to know, especially when it comes to what they need to be voicing to council, is that none of you work 40 hours a week, and that's not okay at all. You work way more than 40 hours a week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Carla. Gross. No, you work far more than that.
Yeah.
And it's not okay because just because we are in public service that, you know, it's expected of you to go above and beyond. And I think in order for the city to function properly and for people to want your jobs after you all retire, we have to be more strict about respecting people's well-being and work-life balance and maintaining a reasonable amount of duties per person, per job. And, you know, wherever those gaps are in, well, we need 3 Monicas. We have to be able to express that. The residents have to know that. Council has to know that.
And as a public employee of 34 years, and Nick, and I don't know if Ken is still there, but I think in the years that I've been a public employee, the respect for public employees has really decreased. So it makes it difficult to put in those hours, but
Yeah.
how do you, I don't mind working the hours. I don't, I'm busy with lots of things, but it's how do you, you know, the pendulum swings both ways, but how do you get the residents to respect the time and effort that public employees put in? And I'm not saying me specifically, I'm saying, you know, all public employees.
Yeah.
And really, that's what I wanted to incorporate under the goal of enhancing public understanding of city services and organization. What does the city do? You know, there's things I think that that people realize that the city does or thinks that they do, but there's a whole iceberg underneath that they don't realize. And to be able to, you know, better present that and better communicate that, I think is key.
Okay, so really the goal of the enhanced public understanding is transparency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's why I think having videos explaining why we do things, like there is a state law that prohibits us from doing XYZ, or we must do this under state and federal law.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of
Flexibility in business statute that says you can't,
Yeah, and those are all super important things for people to know and understand. And normally they don't get to know those things until they become outraged about something, and then they come in and have a one-on-one conversation, and they're like, oh, okay.
Well, and the hard thing is too, is that it'd be great if it didn't. It's never not gonna happen, but it'd be great to try and reduce the amount of that happening.
Definitely.
Let's try to reduce the amount of outrage and general anger and frustration in our communities. I think that's something that we can try and do. All right, we are just about at the end of our meeting here, and as always, I want to try and schedule our next meeting. A lot of events tonight.
I'm gonna head upstairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it.
If the others have questions.
Send them your way.
Send them my way.
Will do.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, and Carlos, don't lock City Hall
Okay.
because they're gonna be here till 7:30.
I will leave it wide open.
Thank you.
All right, so.
How's that for accessible government?
Yeah, exactly. Wide
City
open.
Hall is wide open.
City Hall, so I'm gonna tweet that out right now. August 2nd, 4:30, it's 2 weeks from now.
Shouldn't be a problem.
We'll go ahead and get the word out on that as soon as possible. Hopefully we can catch some people before they head out on their summer vacations.
Is anybody being awarded that night at 5 PM at the Minnesota Marine Art Museum? For the Visit Winona Awards? That needs to be out by then?
Yeah, there's gonna be members of this committee who will want to attend that. Emily probably will be attending that, I imagine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sadie, that, I would call that a conflict.
Should we do a 4 o'clock?
Yeah, could we see if everyone's available at 4 instead of 4:30?
I have a standing meeting that's always 3:30 to 4:30 on Tuesdays. But you know, I can always miss. Actually, it's 3 to 4.
Perfect.
Hey!
There we go. We found a new meeting time that works for hopefully more people.
Yeah, the next week it's 4:30.
Okay,
So yeah,
so that works. Okay, so we'll do the second 4 to 5 o'clock.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Carlos, can I ask you a question before we go?
Yeah, sure.
There's a million ways to skin a cat, right? When you
Yep.
start talking about goals and objectives, you know, one man's goal is another man's objective, right? And vice versa.
Yep.
So, how wedded to this outline are you? And what if I came up with an alternative universe where I turn this on its head and I invite everybody on this committee to do the same? What do you believe the goals to be? What do you know, without causing us a ton extra work, maybe among the 5 or 6 of us, 7, there might be a way to organize this that we all look at and go, yeah, that's a great way to do this. Are you open to something like that? I mean, I don't want to.
The only
start
reason
over.
I put this together is I wanted to give people something to react to.
Okay.
It's something to talk about.
Someone to nucleate off of.
Yep,
Always good.
and you'll notice
A target to throw darts at.
Yeah, target to throw darts at, exactly. So,
Sorry.
yep,
All right, good. Thank you for doing that.
thank you. Thanks for your time yet again. And we'll see you in another 2 weeks here.
Sounds good. See you,
All right.
everybody.
See ya. Hey, how's it going?